Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Division 21. I am Judge Michael McHenry. Before we call the Aldrich case, it is worth noting that the court has received multiple requests for expanded media coverage. The court has granted that request, which means that the media, in addition to its usual ability to attend the proceedings and to report on this matter, has also been granted permission to record, live stream, and rebroadcast certain portions of the hearing this morning. Both the public and the media should keep in mind that the court must balance the freedom of the press with the rights of the parties to due process and a fair trial. In service of that mission, Colorado law provides that the court retains the power to curtail expanded media coverage when the needs of the case dictate. The media and the public are encouraged to view my order at the Colorado Judicial website and the website for the 4th Judicial District here in Colorado Springs. I have approved expanded media coverage for the entry of plea portion of today's hearing. I will notify you when that portion of the hearing is complete. At such time, recording of the proceedings must cease. The media and the public are welcome to attend the remainder of the hearing, but no further recording or live streaming is allowed. For attendees who are physically present in the courtroom, you are reminded that appropriate courtroom behavior is required. Audible outbursts or other interruptive behavior is not allowed. Any violation of these orders will subject the violator to the loss of the right to attend these proceedings and/or sanctions for contempt of court. Next, I will have the parties introduce themselves. Who do we have present for the people?
Thank you, Your Honor. We have Michael Allen, District Attorney for the 4th Judicial District. Rebecca Joins, Lead Detective from CSPD, and then Reggie Short, Jennifer Veman, and Ben as our Victim Advocate Attorney. And then we have several people from the DA's office. And then obviously, most of the people in the courtroom are victims or victim representatives as well.
All right, thank you. Good morning. Mr. Archambault, for the defense, who do we have present?
Your Honor, Joseph Archambault, Michael Bowman, Amy Kelso, Office of the Colorado State Public Defender's Office, on behalf of Mr. Aldrich, who appears in custody to my right. I also have various staff of the Public Defender's Office behind me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today's court date is an arraignment, which is an opportunity for the accused to enter a plea. Is the defense prepared to enter a plea?
Your Honor, we have reached a plea agreement with the District Attorney's Office. If I may approach, this document has signatures from everyone, including the District Attorney's Office.
Yes, please.
And Judge, in anticipation of the plea, obviously, we filed an amended complaint changing count 3 and count 134, which was Friday. I think you have a paper copy of that now.
I do. Is there any objection from the defense to me granting that request for an amendment to the complaint?
No, Your Honor.
All right, that'll be granted. Give me just one moment with the paperwork. Anderson Aldrich, your attorneys have handed me paperwork which demonstrates your desire to plead guilty to certain of the charges that you've been charged with. This means that you and I are going to hold a conversation here this morning, and I need to know how to address you. Excuse me. In the past, your attorneys have told me that you identify as non-binary and you prefer the honorific mix. Can you tell me how you prefer to be addressed?
That is correct. I am Mix Aldrich.
All right. For the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to ask you to stand at the lectern with your attorney.
Just one moment, Your Honor, just to move some chairs.
Yes.
Mike. Copy of the
Mix Aldrich, as I analyze this paperwork, I see that it attempts to reflect your desire to plead guilty to 5 counts of murder in the first degree, 46 counts of attempted murder in the first degree, and 2 bias-motivated crimes. Is this in fact what you wish to do?
Yes, Your Honor.
This paperwork also indicates that on the 5 murder in the first degree charges, you would receive 5 consecutive life sentences to the Colorado Department of Corrections without the possibility of parole. Are you aware of that?
Yes, Your Honor.
This paperwork also reflects that you would be receiving 46 consecutive 48-year sentences for the attempted murder counts, followed by mandatory periods of parole. Is this in fact the plea agreement you wish to enter into?
Yes, Your Honor.
Finally, this paperwork reflects your desire to plead no contest to a Class 5 felony bias-motivated crime and a Class 1 misdemeanor bias-motivated crime with associated sentences to the Department of Corrections. Is this in fact what you wish to do?
Yes, Your Honor.
I can allow you to do this, but first I need to get some background information from you. Please tell me your full name.
Anderson Lee Aldrich,
And how old are you?
23,
What is your date of birth?
5/20/2000,
How many years of education have you been through?
12.
So do you read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes.
Do you suffer from any type of mental health problem that would prevent you from understanding what it is you're doing here today?
No.
As we speak, do you happen to be under the influence of any prescribed medications or alcohol or drugs?
I have prescribed medication that I take every day.
Your Honor, these are mental health meds prescribed by the jail. Does the court want the names of them, or is that enough?
Can you just tell me briefly what category of medications they are and what they're for?
Yes, there are mood stabilizers, antipsychotic meds, blood pressure medication, PTSD medication, and cholesterol medication.
Do those medications cloud your judgment or otherwise affect your cognition?
No, Your Honor.
So are you clear thinking here today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Where were you born?
San Diego, California.
And so are you a United States citizen?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to discuss your case with your attorneys?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation?
Yes.
Now, when a person tells me they wish to plead guilty to a crime, that's another way of saying that you're waiving your right to a jury trial and all the rights that go along with having a jury trial. I need to make sure that you and I are talking about the same thing when we talk about a jury trial. I'm talking about a speedy and public trial. That's a trial that would be given to you within 6 months of the day that you plead not guilty. Any member of the public could come and watch the entirety of the trial. At the trial, you have the right to be represented by an attorney, and in your case, that would be Mr. Archambault and Bowen. At the trial, you have a presumption of innocence, which means that the burden of proving the charge against you is on the prosecutor. You are not required to prove your innocence. By law, the prosecution must prove the charges beyond a reasonable doubt before a jury could return a guilty verdict. At the trial, you have the right to testify if you wish or to remain silent if you wish. Your lawyer is there to give you advice, but your lawyer does not get to make that decision for you. You must make an independent decision about whether to testify or not. If you choose not to testify, I can instruct the jury that the jury is not allowed to use your silence against you. At the trial, you have the right to confront and cross-examine the witnesses who appear against you. You also have the power to subpoena your own witnesses to come to the trial to testify on your behalf. If the jury were to convict you, you have the right to appeal your conviction to the Colorado Court of Appeals. Do you understand all of the rights that you're giving up when you choose to plead guilty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, murder in the first degree is defined as you, in the state of Colorado, at or about the date and place charged in the complaint, after deliberation and with intent to cause the death of a person other than themselves caused the death of the victim. Do you have any questions about how this crime is defined?
No, Your Honor.
Criminal attempt to commit murder in the first degree is defined as you, in the state of Colorado, at or about the date and place charged in the complaint, with intent, you engaged in a substantial step towards the commission of murder in the first degree. Do you have any questions about how this crime is defined?
No, Your Honor.
The Class 5 felony version of a bias-motivated crime is defined as you, in the state of Colorado, at or about the date and place charged in the complaint, with the intent to intimidate or harass another person in whole or in part because of that person's actual or perceived race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, physical or mental disability, or sexual orientation. You knowingly caused bodily injury to another person. Do you have any questions about how that crime is defined?
No, Your Honor.
The Class 1 misdemeanor charge of a bias-motivated crime is defined as you, in the state of Colorado, at or about the date and place charged in the complaint, with the intent to intimidate or harass another person in whole or in part because of that person's actual or perceived race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, physical or mental disability, or sexual orientation. You knowingly, by words or conduct, placed another person in fear of imminent lawless action directed at that person or that person's property, and such words or conduct were likely to produce bodily injury to that person or damage to that person's property. Do you have any questions about how that crime is defined?
No, Your Honor.
We've already briefly discussed what the potential sentence would be pursuant to this plea agreement. However, I need to emphasize the full range of the stakes at issue here. We've already discussed the life sentence without the possibility of parole associated with the 5 first-degree murder counts. I need to make sure that you understand that parole is not a possibility on those charges. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
On the attempted murder counts, there would be mandatory, and I need to double check the accuracy of this with counsel. Is it 3 years
For the attempted murder,
for the attempted murder?
for parole,
For
5. Last 2, yeah.
And so I received an early copy of this plea agreement, and I thought it said 3, and I would just like counsel to double check the accuracy of that.
So a Class 2 felony judge is a 5-year period of
Right.
parole? Yeah.
So Ms. Aldrich, do you understand that those counts have mandatory 5-year periods of parole that would follow each of those sentences?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then as to the Class 5 felony bias-motivated crime, there's a mandatory 3-year period of parole. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
The Class 1 misdemeanor bias-motivated crime does not have a mandatory parole period, but I have the discretion to allow you to serve that sentence in the Department of Corrections rather than the county jail. I'm assuming counsel are aware of the logistical difficulties that can occur if I don't order that. Is there any objection to me ordering that?
No, Judge, and it's contemplated in the plea paperwork as well.
Right. Ms. Aldrich, when I look at the last page of this plea agreement, I see that it's been signed by Mr. Short from the District Attorney's Office. I see that it's been signed by Mr. Archambault representing you. And then I see a third signature here. Is this third signature your signature?
Yes, Your Honor.
And does your signature represent the fact that you have read this document, you have discussed it with your attorneys, and you agree with what it says?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, your guilty pleas must be entered voluntarily. No one can force you to plead guilty against your will. So the most important question I have for you this morning is anyone pressuring you to plead guilty when you really don't want to?
No, Your Honor.
Has anyone made you any promises in exchange for pleading guilty where those promises are not located within this written plea agreement?
No, Your Honor.
Once you decide to plead guilty and once I accept your guilty plea, it is a final decision. You will not be allowed to change your mind and ask to have a trial at a later time. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
The specific counts in the information and complaint that was filed in this case that relate to the 5 counts of murder in the first degree that I understand you're pleading guilty to are counts numbers 1, 4, 7, 10, and 13. Those relate to the victims by the names of Kelly Loving, Daniel Aston, Derek Rump, Ashley Paw, and Raymond Green Vance. To those 5 counts of murder in the first degree, how do you plead?
Guilty.
The counts that are associated with the 46 attempted murder counts are outlined in the plea agreement, and they are associated with the victims by the names of Talalia Priester, Barrett Hudson, Channing Law, Edward Sanders, Lauren Berg, Charlene Slaw, Jericho Lovell, Alicia Collins, Tara Bush, Anthony Malberg, Thomas James, James Slaw, Joanne Law, Michaela Sanchez, Isaiah Aponte, Ashton Gamblin, John Carlos Del Val, Cassandra Fierro, Matthew Broderick, Rain Vasquez, Wyatt Kent, David McRae, Amber Brooks, Richard Fierro, Sean Shelby, John Arcidiano, Ian Alder, Jeremiah Griffith, Jessica Fierro, Brittany Cornelius, Deanna Van Sickett, Joshua Thurman, Michael Anderson, Devin Dracht, Christiana Lovell, Brianna Winningham, Martin Rendelman, Michael Gary, Svetlana Heim, Del Luginal, Azaria LaCour, Bianca Perez, Alicia Huvera, Salahidin Rabea, Ramon Rodriguez, and Dre Norman. To those 46 counts of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you plead?
Guilty.
To the Class 5 felony charge of a bias-motivated crime, the victims listed for that count are all of the names that I have mentioned here this morning. To that Class 5 felony bias-motivated crime, how do you plead?
No contest.
To the Class 1 misdemeanor bias-motivated crime, the listed victims associated with that count is every name I have read here this morning. To that count, how do you plead?
No contest.
Tell me in your own words what it is you did that makes you feel that you are guilty of these crimes.
I intentionally and after deliberation caused the death of each victims listed in those counts. And then with the attempted first-degree murder counts with intent to commit murder in the first degree, took a substantial step toward committing murder in the first degree of each of those victims.
And what about the bias-motivated crimes?
One moment, Your Honor.
Um,
One moment, Your Honor.
I apologize. Because of the evidence presented, I believe that there's a high probability of being convicted at trial to those counts. And so I'm pleading no contest or nolo contendere.
All right. Is this a sufficient factual basis for the people?
Judge, I think it's a bare bones factual basis. I would ask the court to also take judicial notice of all of the evidence presented at the preliminary hearing for all of the murder counts as well as the attempted murder counts, and then also for the bias motivated counts. I think the evidence that we presented at that hearing, obviously the court heard that evidence, found proof evident presumption great. The evidence is very clear that this defendant committed these offenses and that it was done because of a biased motivation towards the victims in this case, specifically due to their sexual orientation and being present at Club Q on November 19th of last year. And so I would ask the court to take judicial notice of that preliminary hearing evidence as well as what the defendant has said here this morning.
Any objection from the defense to that procedure?
No, Your Honor.
The court will in fact take judicial notice of the probable cause affidavit and the evidence I heard at the preliminary hearing and the bond hearing. The court is finding, does either side believe I need to make any special findings regarding the no contest plea?
No, I think especially based upon the language of this 14-page plea agreement, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either, Judge.
Mix Aldrich, do you understand that a no contest plea has certain legal ramifications, but those legal ramifications do not depart very far from an actual guilty plea, meaning that the justice system will treat you the same almost as if you had said you were in fact guilty of those offenses? Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I find that there is a sufficient factual basis for your guilty pleas and your no contest pleas. I find you are represented by competent counsel. You understand the nature of the charges and the possible penalties. You are not under the influence of anything that could affect your thinking here today. Your pleas are entered knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily. They are not the product of any undue influence or coercion. Now, typically, we would do a pre-sentence investigation before we went to sentencing. But I understand from the paperwork that I've been presented here today that the parties wish to go to immediate sentencing. Mr. Allen, is that correct?
That's absolutely right, Your Honor. And we have a number of people that would like to address the court when the court's time is appropriate for that.
Understood. Mr. Archambault, is that in fact the request of the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the recordable portion of this morning's hearing, and the media is ordered to cease any recording or live streaming at this time. Anyone viewing today's proceeding online is welcome to continue to view the live stream that is being presented there, but recording of the live stream by anyone is strictly prohibited. We have moved from an arraignment to a plea hearing, and now we're about to move on to a sentencing hearing. At a sentencing hearing, this would be an opportunity for the attorneys on each side to make their sentencing arguments. It's also an opportunity to present witness testimony or statements from the lectern. I understand that we have a large number of people who wish to make statements here today. And so I'm assuming that for the sake of efficiency, those statements will be made from the lectern rather than the witness stand. Mr. Allen, is that correct?
That's absolutely right, Judge. We have a mix of methods here. Some people are going to address the court directly. There's at least a couple that they've given written statements that they've asked us to read. There's one written statement that we provided to defense as well, that person just wants us to give a copy of that written statement to the court. But most of them will be coming to the lectern here and addressing the court.
All right. And have you had an opportunity to speak with the victims in this matter to decide who's going to speak when?
We have, Judge, and actually I want to make just a further statement on, as it relates to VRA. We've had multiple conversations with everybody that we could regarding what this process would look like, what they can say regarding the plea agreement. If they even oppose the plea agreement, they can come up here and ask the court to not accept it. My understanding is that everybody does agree with this plea agreement. And we have gone over just the logistics of this many people coming up and talking. I'm not sure it's going to be as many as we anticipated in lead up to this. So it may be more efficient than we first anticipated as far as taking victim statements, but it's going to be rather lengthy.
All right. And so I'm going to apologize ahead of time. At this stage of the proceedings in a criminal matter, the court would usually not impose any time limits on any statement that anyone wished to give. But it's my understanding that through an agreement with the parties, there's an informal understanding that each person who's invited to the lectern would have no more than 3 minutes. Is that a fair statement?
Generally, yes, Judge. I would ask the court to give a little bit of grace and leave to folks. I think that we'll be able to get everybody under that time limit, but there may be some just because of the emotion that it may push it a little bit. And I know the court will be very gracious in that.
Sure. I'm not going to be watching the clock. I just ask people to understand the time constraints under which we're working here today. So do the people wish to make a sentencing argument now or after the statements of these witnesses?
After the statements of the witnesses, Judge.
And can I leave you in control of calling them up by name one at a time?
Yes, Judge.
All right, you have the floor, Mr. Allen.
Okay. So the first two people are going to be speaking on behalf of Daniel Aston, and it would be Jeff and Sabrina Aston. So the first person we have here, Judge, is Jeff Aston, last name Aston.
Mr. Aston, good morning. Welcome to Division 21.
And Judge, before we get started, we do have a PowerPoint with pictures of each one of the homicide victims. And I don't know if we can get the screen down. And so the picture that will be on the screen, Judge, is Daniel Aston, Jeff's son.
Mr. Aston, what is it you wish to tell me?
A positive force has been taken out of the world. Daniel Aston should be here. He was in the prime of his life. He was happy. He had hopes, dreams, and plans that will never be realized. He had family and many, many friends that he loved and that loved him. Over 30 people spoke at his visitation of their love for him. Over 300 people attended each of his 2 funerals. He was kind-hearted, cheerful in spirit, sensitive, and a gifted poet. He had a contagious smile and burning blue eyes. Whenever he came to visit his mom and I, he brought joy with him. Losing him has brought us incredible grief and sadness. We will never hear any of his funny stories again. I will never again hear him laugh at my dad jokes. Most importantly, he had a good life with many positive things in store for him that was taken away from him way too soon. He was a huge light in the world that was snuffed out by a heinous, evil, and cowardly act. His mom and I will never be the same. A big part of our life is gone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next is Sabrina Aston. First name is Sabrina.
Good morning, ma'am. What is it you wish to tell me?
Daniel Aston was such a great and generous person. He may have forgiven you, Mr. Aldrich, but I will never forgive you for the heinous crime. You took 5 lives that can no longer follow their dreams. You wounded so many innocent souls that now have to get their lives back together. I cannot express how devastated I am. This hole in my heart every day until we die. Your actions were brutal, hate-filled, and cowardly. You have to live with this shame in your small cell until you die. Not for 1 minute do I believe your words of regret and remorse. Our family and friends will never be able to watch Daniel grow and enjoy so many milestones of life. You robbed him of ever fulfilling his dreams of returning to college, having a child, and so many things he will never be able to do. Excuse me. He had so many people that love him and will honor his memory. Daniel Aston will not be forgotten.
Thank you.
Next, we have Wyatt Kent and his mother, Laura Kent.
Good morning, Your Honor.
What is it you wish to tell me?
My name is Wyatt Kent. I was a drag performer at Club Q. I was celebrating my birthday when this heinous attack happened. And not only have I lost my partner, my sense of safety, but I've also lost a massive sense of safety for our community as a whole. We as queer people were attacked on November 19th. I forgive this individual as they are a symbol of a broken system of hate and vitriol pushed against us as a community. It is inexcusable, the action and the pain and trauma and holes that have been created from this tragic evening. What brings joy to me is that this hurt individual will never be able to see the joy and the light that has been brought into our community as an outcome of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Laura Kent, Laura.
Good morning, ma'am. What is it you wish to tell me?
As a parent, you can never imagine that getting that phone call from your son, Wyatt, at 12:13 in the morning after he's been celebrating his 23rd birthday, the panic in his voice. There's been a shooting. I think I'm okay. Come and get me. This phone call, no parent should ever have to get. I wake up a lot of nights in sheer panic, looking out the window, not seeing his car. I go through every scenario. Now what has happened to him? He's not home. Our son will never celebrate his birthday again, and his life has been changed forever. He will never be a whole person. You also killed our soon-to-be son-in-law. You robbed me of the life with another son. Our son's friend, Cassie, from 2nd grade, she's part of our family. Her family was there, our extended family. Her mom was trampled. Cassie broke her knee. You killed her boyfriend, Raymond, who was part of Wyatt as well since high school. Cassie's dad had to stop you from continuing your rampage. You shot up my family. We're paramedics ourselves. We've worked in this community for over 30 years. You will never understand the devastation you've done. This will haunt us for the rest of our lives. You, Anderson Aldrich, your mother and your grandparents, you have to know the ripple effect that you caused to our community, that you lived in. Oops. You could have prevented this catastrophe, and you chose to look the other way. Shame on you. Shame on you. The damage to every area in this community that has had to deal with this, from the police officers, the firefighters, the paramedics, the EMTs, the emergency room doctors and nurses, and all their ancillary people, the CAT scan, MRI, X-ray tech people, the operating room staff who's had to desperately try to save these people's lives. To the people, doctors and nurses on the floors, the rehab people, the physical therapists, occupational therapists, to the mental health specialists. You've touched everyone. This doesn't even include the financial costs that you've cost countless people. Employees that have lost their jobs, have day-to-day living expenses they can't meet. You've drastically changed everyone's life. We don't even touch the people who knew these people who were killed or injured, who are trying to support them financially as well. Love over hate, everyone.
Thank you.
Next, we have Adriana Vance and Estella Bell. And Adriana will be speaking on behalf of her son, Raymond Green Vance, who is pictured on the screen behind you.
Good morning, ma'am. What is it you wish to tell me?
Good morning, Judge. My name is Adriana Vance, Raymond's mother. Raymond was 22 years old. A kind, loving, gentle man who touched a lot of people's hearts. He was always there for his family and his friends. He was also there for people he didn't even know. He never harmed a soul. He was killed in a horrific manner in what amounts to less than 5 minutes on November 20th, 2022. At 11:57 p.m., lives were taken. Families disrupted, plans destroyed, and somehow the families all need to find a way to go on. This man doesn't deserve to go on. What matters now is that he never sees a sunrise or a sunset. That's all I have to say, Judge.
Thank you.
And for the record, Adriana is spelled Adriana. Next, we have Tiffany Loving, speaking on behalf of Kelly Loving, who is pictured on the screen behind you.
Your Honor, my name is Sarah Raish. I'm an attorney for Ms. Loving. She's requested that I read the statement, if Your Honor will permit it.
That is acceptable. Good
Thank you.
morning.
And this is Tiffany Loving's statement. Last year, 4 days before Thanksgiving, my sister Kelly Loving was brutally murdered in a mass shooting. Just like that, my sister became a number, a statistic of another violent hate crime towards the transgender community. 4 other people, including a transgender man, Daniel Aston, were also killed with my compass, my best friend, my sister. I loved my sister dearly. I miss her so much. There is not a single day where thoughts of her don't drift in my mind. Sometimes I cry at those thoughts. Sometimes I smile because I can hear her laugh. That's just the way it is. I know in my heart she'll always be there, but I can't help but feel robbed. When I see my grandson, I think about how Aunt Kelly would have made sure he was dressed to the nines. Our time was abruptly cut short. I mourn the passage of time and her life unfinished. I don't want to let my sadness turn to anger because I know Kelly spent her time eliminating stigma and biases. She treated everyone she came in contact with as if they were the most special person in the room. She loved herself and wanted others to unapologetically be themselves. Today, I ask everyone to embrace our differences and to denounce hate violence. I refuse to let my sister be erased by horrific ongoing violence against the LGBTQ community. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kurt Paugh speaking on behalf of his wife, Ashley Paugh, P-A-U-G-H. Stephanie, do you want to come up at the same time? Okay. Okay, come on up. We also have Stephanie Clark, which is Ashley's sister.
Good morning, ma'am. What is it you wish to tell me?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to speak today on behalf of my family. As I sat there trying to find the right words to describe the impact this very public and tragic event has had on mine and my family's life has been extremely difficult for me. The night of November 19th, my sister was brutally murdered at Club Q by the careless and selfish act of this coward. My sister was only 35 years old and still had so much life to live, but he robbed her of that. Ashley was an amazing woman who always showed so much love, patience, and kindness towards people. She had a heart of gold and always tried to help others anytime they needed it. My world was shattered the morning of November 20th when I received the call from my brother-in-law telling me I needed to hurry and go over to be with my dad because Ashley had been at Club Q at the time of the shooting and he can't find her at the hospital and she isn't answering his calls or texts. At that moment, my heart sank and I cried so hard I could hardly breathe. We drove up to Colorado Springs and waited for any word from her as we kept calling all the hospitals, but none of them showed her being there. My sweet niece, Riley, was so strong that day and kept telling me, "Auntie, it will be okay. They will find my mommy." Then the evening came, and they came to tell us that Ashley was one of the 5 that didn't survive. As my dad, my aunt, Riley, and other family members were waiting at the hotel for any word, Kurt and I went in to tell Riley her mommy was never coming home. The screams and the cries of no, 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 and begging us to please do something to bring her mommy back are forever etched in my mind. That is something I wish that he would have to hear every day of the rest of his life. Then having to go in and tell my dad that his baby girl wasn't with us here anymore, and him crying so hard as I'm trying to hold him. No parent should ever have to bury their child, and especially from such a monstrous act of one person. The lives that you have shattered and the sadness, anger, and grief my family and I have to endure is overwhelming. Our lives are forever changed, and this is a whole other level of pain by the way she was taken from us. We never got to say our last goodbyes. or I love yous before she was gone. My 11-year-old niece wants to forgive you because she said that's what she feels her mom would want her to do. My sister taught her to be a caring and forgiving person, and I'm glad she still has that innocent mind and hasn't realized what an evil world we really live in. I have a profound sadness that my grandkids are 1 and 3 years old and won't remember the wonderful aunt they had. My brother-in-law having to raise their daughter on his own while grieving as he struggles to go through every day without his high school sweetheart and the love of his life. Kurt, I could not be more proud of you. You are doing an amazing job. We are such a close family, and every day for the rest of our lives, we will miss Ashley, and we will cherish all of the memories we did have with her. My sister would say, "Be my voice and fight to make sure that justice is served and that he will never see life outside of these prison walls. The sentence that he will receive is hope that he will be kept from ever committing such a heinous crime again, and to make sure he could never again bring this so much pain and sorrow to any other families." To the media, please be considerate of all of the grieving victims and their families today as you are preparing your story for this case. You always think that something like this could never happen to you. I thought the same. Nothing like this would ever happen to our family. We grew up in a small town that didn't even have any stoplights. How could this happen to us? I was wrong. Thank you, Michael, Ben, Coyette, Jessica, all of the legal team. We appreciate you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Kurt Paw. The impact this incident has had on my family is that my wife, mother, daughter, sister, niece, cousin, and friend to so many was taken from us. With one cowardly act, my wife, my best friend, and the mother of my child is gone. A woman who was so loving, generous, non-biased, who would have had a conversation with this lowlife with no judgments. Ashley was a loving woman who worked with foster children, found children, and parents knew hope and love, who brought families together and worked closely with many communities throughout Colorado. Her love and joy for these children and these families was so special and personal to her. Those families and those children are also feeling the loss of Ashley, who was taken by one senseless act of hate. It hurts that this monster gets to spend the rest of his life in prison, living off of our tax dollars. Why isn't the punishment for this much harsher? He gets to breathe air, eat 3 meals a day, all while my wife, who is completely innocent, was shot from behind. His punishment should be painful and matches the pain he caused to my wife and to many others. While everyone will forget this disgraceful deadbeat, who will rot in loneliness and hate, my wife's name, Ashley Marie Paw, will live on through memories of her loved ones and especially through her daughter. Ashley will never be forgotten.
Thank you.
Next, we have Millie Laporte speaking on behalf of Derek Rump, and I think it's actually through a and it's, for the record, Milie Laporte, Laporte. And this is on behalf of Derek Rump, who's pictured on the screen behind you.
Hold on, I gotta find it.
You've got time. Don't worry about it.
Good morning, ma'am. What is it you wish to tell me?
Derek was a loving, caring, kind son, brother, cousin, and friend. I don't know if I can do this. be with someone who would give you the shirt off his back. His last dollar. Sorry. His last dollar for food. It meant that he was helping other people that he held dear. On November 20th, 2022, we received a voicemail from my Nana.
I don't think you're in the right one. I'm sorry. I think we should just.
Yeah.
Can we just play
I want to play the audio.
So they've got an audio recording, I think, Judge.
I can't.
If you want me to read it, you can do it. I can. Whatever you prefer.
Yeah. Gosh, where's my messages? Go to your messages. Group messages.
So who's this?
Oh, the audio is from by Jenny Blackman.
His
Okay.
cousin.
Okay, so it's going to be a audio statement from Jenny Blackman, which is Derek's cousin.
All right.
Derek Rum's entire family
Oh,
would like to take this opportunity to speak about the amazing person Derek was. There are not enough words to describe Derek, but we will try. Try. That's an interesting word. It's also a word we, Derek's loving family, have been using immensely the past few months. We try to get through every day. We try to understand why. We try to keep our faith. And we try to live our lives without Derek. The loss of Derek has taken a huge toll on our family, especially considering we are also suffering the loss of Derek's brother, who passed away just a few months before Derek. Some of us talk to Derek every day, and some of us spoke to him once in a while, but we all love Derek just the same. Derek was family. He was a son, a grandson, a brother, a nephew, a cousin, an uncle, and he was a friend to all. Derek had a huge heart and an amazing smile. Derek was kind, caring, compassionate, outspoken, fun, generous, smart, extremely spiritual, and most of all, he was proud of who he was and to be a part of the LGBTQIA+ community. Derek was a light to so many people. He helped so many people going through and fighting their own internal battles, whether they needed a shoulder to cry on, a listening ear, or just someone to be there. He would be. Derek would take on so much weight for others just to see them shine again or be back on their feet. Derek was so unbelievably selfless. He would give you the shirt off his back, his last dollar, his last bit of food, and he would expect nothing in return. Even if that meant he would be without. He would do anything for the people he loved. Derek was an inspiration. Derek took a chance and left Pennsylvania and moved to Colorado, where he started a whole new life and created an amazing and beautiful family. Colorado was his home and his heart. Derek did not deserve this. He deserved to live a full and loving life with his family and friends by his side. He had so much more goodness and light to give to this world. Derek's image, strength, and wisdom will forever be missed, but never forgotten. His laughter and smile will continue to live on through stories, and he will continue to be a light through our memories and dreams. The beautiful poet, Samara Vivette, said, Sometimes we are forced to let go when we are not ready, only to grieve the loss for an eternity. Derek, we all love you so much and miss you tremendously. You have earned your wings, so fly high and keep watching over us all as we continue to try and live life here without you. Your Honor, as far as the defendant, we have no forgiveness in our hearts for him for murdering our beloved Derek in cold blood. We hope that he never has another good night's sleep. We hope he never has a good meal. We hope he never has a reason to smile. We hope karma comes back around to him as hard as it can and as often as it can. We hope he is greeted with the same hatred every day that he has shown. We hope he never has another day's peace, because the only peace our family will know is that one day this awful being will die. And we know that when it comes time for his ultimate judgment, he will be going straight to hell to rot. And even that's not good enough for him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Anderson. Michael Anderson is a survivor from Club Q. Last name Anderson.
It's my brother, just
Okay.
Timothy.
What's his name?
Timothy Anderson.
And then he's got his brother here with him, Timothy Anderson.
Good morning, sir. What is it you wish to tell me?
Good morning. On November 19th, I had some pretty simple expectations going into work that night. I would clock in, I would bartend with Derek and Daniel, I would serve our community, I would clean up messes, I would take smoke breaks, I would enjoy my night until it was time to close up Club Q, and then I would go home. My biggest concern that night was, should I take an Uber home or should I drive myself home? And that was probably the biggest question I dealt with getting off at 2:30 in the morning, usually. Those expectations were wrong. That the reality was much different from what I expected. I was in the middle of pouring a drink for Ed Sanders, one of Club Q's longest patrons for 20 years now, when this monster next to me decided to come into my job and our community safe space and begin hunting us down as if our lives were meaningless, as if they meant nothing. That night, I thought that I was not going to make it alive out of that building. I recall this defendant walking into the patio, preparing to continue his rampage, when just seconds to go, my life was spared by Thomas James, and then Rich Fierro, and then Drea as well. The trauma of being in a moment where everything is fun, normal, and safe, for the pendulum to swing so extreme to the other direction of I'm about to die, is a type of mental whiplash that I wish on nobody. I'm grateful to have survived that night, but my expectation was me, Daniel, and Derek would all clock out that night and go home. I'm the only one who got to clock out that night, and that's not fair. None of this should have happened to us, to anywhere in this country. I will never forgive this person next to me, and only God can do that from now on. This man has come into our home. He has destroyed a safe haven for the LGBTQ community. He has torn relationships apart throughout this community with his senseless actions, and he has broken this community into pieces that may never be repaired. And justice oftentimes moves slower than we would like, but today I hope that justice will be served. And I thank you for your overseeing this case. And I thank you, very, very thankful to Michael Allen and his team for pursuing justice in this for us, for the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew Haynes. Matthew Haynes is next. He's the owner of Club Q, Haynes.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir. What is it you wish to tell me?
Thank you. Although I was not there that evening, I was there within about 10 minutes. I've watched this cold and calculated attack many times through the 23 video cameras that we had. 20 years ago, we started Club Q as a safe space for LGBTQ community. For 20 years, it was a space that welcomed with open arms anyone. It was a space where so many of us grew up, where we found our friends, our chosen family, and even our partners. We celebrated life's highs and supported one another during the down times. Our staff, our bartenders, our security, our door people, our customers, and everyone was an integral part of what made Club Q so special. This defendant went to Club Q several times before November 19th. You were served food and drinks by the very bartenders, Daniel and Derek, that you would later return and murder in cold blood. November 19th started no differently than any other night over the last 20 years. You entered and paid a cover to our door girl. You saw Club Q with a drag show and full of people from all walks of life, just full of life, enjoying themselves. You cold-bloodedly walked amongst them, knowing you would soon return and attempt to murder as many as you could. You returned at 11:56 p.m. that night, armed with a military assault weapon, pistol, stun grenade, body armor, and enough ammo to shoot everyone in the club 3 times. Within 3 seconds of pulling up, you murdered Daniel, who was assisting Ashton at the door. You shot Ashton 9 times and then proceeded to round the corner, cold-bloodedly, shooting into a crowd. Again, although not there, I see these images over and over in my mind from the 23 different security cameras. After shooting for 45 seconds, what you didn't plan on was that the patrons of Club Q stood up to your cowardly attack. Thomas grabbed your weapon and started fighting you. You shot him in the process, and yet he kept fighting. Rich soon joined in, followed by Dre. You are a small person in a large body, full of hate and disregard for the lives of those around you. Your head carries the scars of our community fighting back. May every single time you look in the mirror, you remember what you did to the lives of 5 wonderful people, Derek, Daniel, Raymond, Kelly, and Ashley, and the 17 others you injured, and the countless others in this community that you have affected. There are no excuses. We don't want to hear your feeble attempts to rationalize what was done. You did not succeed in destroying this community. Club Q will open with a memorial to those killed, to remember the people, to remember those that were killed for generations to come. Your hate and the hate of others will not win. You do deserve the maximum penalty this state, and hopefully in time this country can issue. We will grow stronger while you waste the rest of your life away. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Cassandra Fierro, Jessica Fierro, and Richard Fierro. Cassandra is Kassandra Fierro, Jessica common spelling, and Richard common spelling. So we first have Jessica.
Morning, Your Honor. This thing sitting in this courtroom is not a human. It is a monster, it's a killer, a murderer, a failure, a coward, a racist, a bigot, and an embarrassment to society who has earned a one-way ticket to eternity in prison 5 times over, and then some. I refuse to give this coward the satisfaction of hearing my struggles or my family's struggles due to its evil agenda on the night of November 19, 2022. This thing has no remorse other than getting caught. It claims to have been an active participant in church and supposedly sought help from its church, which only coddled this bigot. Another failure. But little did it know that the real divine intervention would come in the form of Thomas James, Treya Norman, and Rich Fierro in Club Q that night. I too am a mother. My daughter is also in this courtroom today and will speak. I was at Club Q that night. I know how strong and unwavering a mother's love can be and should be. What I don't know is how its mother could turn a blind eye to evil and essentially let murder happen. Another failure, a big one. Another monster who's just as guilty, in my opinion, and is now doomed to a lifetime of supervised limited visits and limited phone calls by her murderer of a son. Enjoy that. You let that happen. Every time it calls you, it will serve as a reminder that you too had a hand in his imprisonment.